out the bells, sweet silver bells.
Hello there. Oh, you're still here. Good. I'm awfully pleased to see you. Thank you very much for sticking with me. Okay, we are on to Stave 3. Now then, I have a very small confession to make. I have made a few more small cuts in this stave, and a few more than in any of the others, because this stave is quite a bit longer than the others. Now, if I've cut out your very bestest bit, I apologise. I'm very sorry. I mean that. I really am. Now I'm going to read this one in four parts. And just so you know, the last part's much shorter than any of the others. Don't know why I feel you need to know that, but anyway, I'll stop talking. Shush, let's carry on. Okay, the second of the three spirits. Awaking in the middle of a prodigiously tough snore, and sitting up in bed to get his thoughts together, Scrooge had no occasion to be told that the bell was again upon the stroke of 1. He felt that he was restored to consciousness in the right nick of time for the especial purpose of holding a conference with the second messenger dispatched to him through Jacob Marley's intervention. But finding that he turned uncomfortably cold when he began to wonder which of his curtains this new spectre would draw aside, he put them, everyone, back with his own hands, and, lying down, established a sharp lookout all around the bed. For he wished to challenge the spirit on the moment of its appearance, and didn't wish to be taken by surprise or made nervous. He was ready for a good broad field of strange appearances, and nothing between a baby or a rhinoceros would have astonished him very much. Now, being prepared for anything, he was not, by any means, prepared for nothing. And consequently, when the bell struck 1 and no shape appeared, he was taken by a violent fit of trembling. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a quarter of an hour went by, yet nothing came. All this time he lay upon his bed, the very core and centre of a blaze of ruddy light, which streamed upon it when the clock proclaimed the hour, and which, being only light, was more alarming than a dozen ghosts, as he was powerless to make out what it meant, or would be at, and was sometimes apprehensive that he might be at that very moment an interesting case of spontaneous combustion, without having the consolation of knowing it. At last, however, he began to think that the source and secret of this ghostly light might be coming from the adjoining room, from whence, on further tracing it, it seemed to come. The idea taking full possession of his mind, he got up softly and shuffled in his slippers to the door. The moment Scrooge's hand was on the lock, a strange voice called him by his name and bade him enter. He obeyed. It was his own room. There was no doubt about that. But it had undergone a surprising transformation. The walls and ceiling were so hung with living green that it looked like a perfect grove, from every part of which bright, gleaming berries glistened. The crisp leaves of holly, mistletoe, and ivy reflected back the light as if so many little mirrors had been scattered there, and a mighty blaze went roaring up the chimney. Heaped on the floor to form a kind of throne were turkeys, geese, game, poultry, brawn, great joints of meat, suckling pigs, long wreaths of sausages, mince pies, plum puddings, barrels of oysters, hot red chestnuts, cherry-cheeked apples, juicy oranges, luscious pears, immense 12 cakes, and steaming bowls of punch that made the chamber dim with their delicious steam. In easy state, upon this couch, there sat a giant, glorious to see, who bore a glowing torch in shape not unlike Plenty's horn, and held it up, high up, to shed its light on Scrooge as he came peeping round the door. "Come in," exclaimed the ghost. "Come in and know me better, man." Scrooge entered timidly and hung his head before this spirit. He was not the dogged Scrooge he had been, and though the spirit's eyes were clear and kind, he didn't like to meet them. "I am the ghost of Christmas present," said the spirit. "Look upon me." Scrooge reverently did so. It was clothed in one simple green robe or mantle, bordered with white fur. This garment hung so loosely on the figure that its capacious breast was bare. Its feet, observable beneath the ample folds of the garment, were also bare, and on its head it wore no other covering than a holly wreath, set here and there with shining icicles. Its dark brown curls were long and free as its genial face, its sparkling eye, its open hand, its cheery voice, its unconstrained demeanour, and its joyful air. Girded round its middle was an antique scabbard, but no sword was in it, and the ancient wreath was eaten up with rust. "You have never seen the like of me before," exclaimed the ghost. "Never," Scrooge made to answer it. "Have never walked forth with the younger members of my family, meaning, for I am very young, my elder brothers, born in these later years," pursued the phantom. "I don't think I have," said Scrooge. "No, I'm afraid not. Have you many brothers, spirit?" "More than 1,800, said the ghost. "A tremendous family to provide for," muttered Scrooge. The ghost of Christmas present rose. "Spirit," said Scrooge submissively, "conduct me where you will. I went forth last night on compulsion, and I learned a lesson which is working now. Tonight, if you have aught to teach me, let me profit by it. Touch my robe." Scrooge did as he was told, and held it fast. Holly, mistletoe, red berries, ivy, turkeys, geese, game, poultry, brawn, meat, pigs, sausages, oysters, pies, puddings, fruit and punch all vanished instantly. So did the room, the fire, the ruddy glow, the hour of night, and they stood in the city streets on Christmas morning, where, for the weather was severe, the people made a rough but brisk and not unpleasant kind of music in scraping the snow from the pavement in front of their dwellings and from the tops of their houses, whence it was mad delight to the boys to see it come plumping down into the road before and splitting into artificial little snowstorms. The people who were shovelling away on the housetops were jovial and full of glee, calling out to one another from the parapets and now and then exchanging a facetious snowball, laughing heartily if it went right and not less heartily if it went wrong. The poulterers' shops were still half open, and the fruitiers were radiant in their glory. There were great, round, pot-bellied baskets of chestnuts, shaped like the waistcoats of old gentlemen. There were ruddy, brown-faced, broad-girthed Spanish onions, shining in the fatness of their growth like Spanish friars. There were pears and apples clustered high in blooming pyramids. There were bunches of grapes, made in the shopkeeper's benevolence to dangle from conspicuous hooks, that people's mouths might water gratis as they passed. There were Norfolk biffins, squab and swarthy, setting off the yellow of the oranges and lemons, in their great compactness of their juicy persons, urgently entreating and beseeching to be carried home in paper bags and eaten after dinner. The grocers. Oh, the grocers. Nearly closed, with perhaps 2 shutters down or 1, but through those gaps, such glimpses. It was not alone that the scales descended on the counter made a merry sound, or that the twine and roller parted company so briskly, or that the canisters were rattled up and down like juggling tricks, or even that the blended scents of tea and coffee were so grateful to the nose, or even that the raisins were so plentiful and rare, the almonds so extremely white, the sticks of cinnamon so long and straight, the other spices so delicious, the candied fruits so caked and spotted with molten sugar as to make the coldest onlookers feel faint and subsequently bilious. Nor was it that the figs were moist and pulpy, or that the French plums blushed in their modest tartness from their highly decorated boxes, or that everything was good to eat and in its Christmas dress, but that the customers were also hurried and so eager and so hopeful in the promise of the day that they tumbled up against each other at door, crushing their crushing their wicker baskets wildly, and left their purchases upon the counter and had to come running back for them and fetch them, and committed hundreds of the like mistakes in the best possible humour. But soon the steeples called all the good people to church and chapel, and away they came, flocking through the streets in their best clothes and with their gayest faces. And at the same time there emerged from scores of by-streets and lanes and nameless turnings innumerable people carrying their dinners to the bakers' shops. The sight of these poor revellers appeared to interest the spirit very much, for he stood with Scrooge beside him in a baker's doorway, and, taking off the covers as their bearers passed, sprinkled incense on their dinners from his torch. And it was a very uncommon kind of torch, for once or twice, when there were angry words between some dinner carriers who had jostled each other, he shed a few drops of water on them from it, and their good humour was restored directly, for they said it was a shame to quarrel upon Christmas Day. And so it was. God love it, so it was. "Is there a particular flavour in what you sprinkle from your torch?" asked Scrooge. "There is. My own." "Would it apply to any dinner on this day?" asked Scrooge. To any kindly given. To a poor one most." "Why to a poor one most?" "Because it needs it the most." "Spirit," said Scrooge after a moment's thought, "I wonder you, of all beings in the many worlds about us, should desire to cramp these people's opportunities of innocent enjoyment." "I?" cried the spirit. "You would deprive them of their means of dining every 7th day, often the only day on which they can be said to dine at all," said Scrooge. "Wouldn't you?" "I," cried the spirit. "You seek to close these places on the 7th day," said Scrooge, "and it comes to the same thing." "I seek," exclaimed the spirit. "Well, forgive me if I'm wrong." "It has been done in your name, or at least in that of your family," said Scrooge. "There are some upon this earth of yours," returned the spirit, "who lay claim to know us, and who do their deeds of passion, pride, ill will, hatred, bigotry, and selfishness in our name, who are as strange to us and all our kith and kin as if they had never lived. Remember that, and charge their doings on themselves, not on us." Scrooge promised that he would, and they went on, invisible, as they had been before, into the suburbs of the town.
Ding dong, ding dong. That is their song.